Good morning, my darlings. I've just jumped out the shower, but I had to do a quick video for you before I step into running the business this morning. I just wanted to pop on and basically talk about the headline news which I'd seen today. Now, today is the 19th of February. So, headline news that greeted me this morning was the Treasury warns of bumpy road to lower inflation after an unexpected jump to 3%. I shall continue. The UK's inflation rate jumps from 2.5% to 3% in January, the highest level in 10 months. It means that on average, something that cost £1 a year ago now costs £1.03. Here's what else it means for your money. Today's figure was driven in part by airfares, food and private school fees. The Office for National Statistics says Chancellor Rachel Reeves vows to get more pounds in the pocket and go further and faster to deliver economic growth. The Bank of England's target for inflation is 2%. It peaked at a 40-year high of 11.1% in October of 2022. The bank considers inflation when determining the interest rates. With a weak economy, the bank now faces a dilemma. Our business correspondent Theo Leggett writes, "How worrying are today's figures?" By Theo Leggett. And this came in at 9:47 this morning. Some of the upward pressures were obviously well anticipated, such as the big spike in private school fees as a result of VAT being imposed on them. The smaller than expected decrease in January airfares might annoy winter travellers, but is unlikely to cause major issues. Monty's in the background. Hello, Mont. Yes, hello, gorgeous. But the increase in I'll start again. But the increase in food price inflation from 1.9 to 3.1% will be a definite concern. Essentials such as meat, bread, and cereals are becoming even more expensive at a time when families are struggling to cope with the price rises already seen over the past couple of years. That this is politically very sensitive. So-called core inflation, which strips out more volatile items, has also been rising. Component prices have increased. That could be because of trade tensions created by the new US government, prompting business to stockpile the products they need. Energy prices are rising due to a cold winter, and that is expected to be reflected in the next set of figures. The questions that remain are clear. How much of this is temporary and likely to settle back later in the year? And how much of the problems does this represent? Oh, God. The Chancellor says her primary mission is getting more pounds in the pocket. Rachel Reeves says she'll kickstart growth by getting rid of unnecessary regulation and investing in rebuilding roads, rail, and energy. I thought we were building houses, Rachel. Is that as well, or have we changed that to the roads? Opposition parties aren't so upbeat. Lib Dem leader Ed Davey is warning of a new era of stagflation. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride says today's figures mean further pain for family finances. Oh dear, oh goodness. What's next? The Bank of England may have to change its priorities and keep interest rates higher for longer. That might mean higher mortgage repayments for homeowners. Oh, I don't know. I'm being taxed to death. I am paying for every single thing that comes in and out of this house alongside my husband. My mortgage is already over £1,000 a month. My food bill's creeping up to £1,000 a month. I haven't even taken into consideration my gas, my water, my electric, my phone bills, and the supporting of the children. Well, one child in particular that's in university. And my other darling daughter is actually contributing to the household now that she's out there and working, God bless her, but she's also saving for a home. I don't know where it's going to end. I really don't. We've got all this going on. The cost of food is creeping up ever so, that we're actually adding an extra £50 to the budget next month in March. And that's on top of everything else that I'm paying out. I just don't know, Rachel, where's it going to end? You know, we're screaming here from the top of our lungs, and you're not listening. You're running round in circles, and you don't know what to do you, darling? Stagflation is a very worrying situation. The fact that your constituents can't afford to eat, that should worry you. I know you want to get pounds in our pockets, but I can't pay you any more than what I am doing. You're taxing me enough as it is. You know, every year I do my bit, as thousands of others who are paying tax across Britain do. Everybody's doing their bit. We're all paying. But there's less going in the pot than what's coming out. And at some point, any business owner would recognise that that would mean that they're bankrupt. You know, if there's less going into the pot than to what's needed to come out of the pot, and then I just don't know. Where's it going to end? You've upped the retirement age from 65 to 67, of which, you know, take it on the chin. Yes, that's what I've got to do. Fine, I'll do it. But I just, yes, I'll pay my taxes. Of course I will. Everybody else across Britain does. I will do the same. But at some point, do I have to choose between paying the mortgage and eating? And forget the heating and the water and the gas and electric telephones and all that. Council tax, oh yes, all that's got to get paid for. Oh, I don't know. I just don't know. I bring you to a really famous book. Yes, Pendulum. This was written in 1968. Yes. First printed in 1968, but the edition, this is the first edition, paperback edition from 1969. 56 years old. This book is 56 years old. So, and it was actually written a year earlier than that. So this story is 57 years old, right? I'll read you the blurb on the back. Not science fiction, but terror probability. As the England that we know, the guardian of justice and peace, is thrown into violent convulsions by an economic depression, reminiscent of the gloomy days between the two world wars. For those who can remember those days of evil, it is something to be accepted. But for the young, it is the call to strike. Gangs of hooligans rampage throughout the land, bringing in their wake a bitterness and anger that is almost subhuman. Action, as always, produces reaction. The pendulum swings yet again, but the stability that follows is that of a supra-discipline of grim religious retaliation, and an England that had been warm is now a country of freedom frozen despondency. A Time for Patience. The Times, December the 2nd, obviously 1968. The latest measures announced by the Chancellor serve to underline two things. The first is the seriousness, one might say, desperation of the country's position. For years we have alternated crises with brief periods of economic buoyancy. Under both Conservative and Labour administrations, we saw the stop-go policy of deflation followed by reflation, of urgent warnings that we stood on the brink of ruin, followed by optimistic assertions that this time we should have controlled expansion and continuing prosperity. In fact, the intervals between crises have been shortening. The tentative reflation embarked on at the beginning of this year had to be halted before it was properly underway, when our balance of payments suddenly and sharply took a turn for the worse. Before it had been loosening a single notch. The belt was retightened by two or three. The mood of organised labour was bound to be in the circumstances an ugly one. It was at this juncture, in early summer, that the students' demonstrations against the proposed abrogation of the previously agreed increase in grants, this is back when grants are not loans, so this is back in the day when grants were given, yes? Increase in grants flared up and were joined by other teenagers. By accident or design, the demonstrators turned into riots with considerable damage to property and accompanying loss of life. After 6 days of this, the then government capitulated to the students and reversed their previous decisions. This seems now, and labelled by informed opinion at the time, an act of utter folly. But one can understand the problem motivation. The urgent concern was presumably the avoidance of civil unrest at a time when unpopular decisions were going to have to be taken in the very near future. It may also have seemed that the concession was of minor importance. A relatively tiny sum of public money was involved and are justifiable in that the earlier rejection had been an act of doubtful faith and one opposed by influential people inside the cabinet on those grounds. Now, it does go on for several pages, does that news report, but I won't read all of it, but that was the first page. And this book, as I say, was written in 1968. So, I don't want to see art imitating life or life imitating art. What I want is for the government that's in power to work out a solution to the problem at hand. Because people like myself and my husband and people like us, who are basically the backbone of this country, I'm not saying that I'm doing it on my own. Good grief, no. No. But the workers of this country, the ones that are giving their all so that you can have what you need to run this country on a day-to-day basis, are getting mighty tired and exhausted. Utterly exhausted. We are working our fingers to the bone. We're not doing anything else other than paying bills. And the bills just keep getting more and more difficult to pay. And we're tired, darling. Rachel Reeves, we are tired. And we're frightened. And you have a very tired and frightened constituency across Britain. And we need to know that you have a plan. We need to know that you can get your budget working. I personally, my advice, for what it's worth, and I'm not a financial advisor, is tear up the budget because it's not working. The last budget is not working. And sit down and have an emergency meeting urgently and rehash and thrash out a brand new budget for the beginning of April. Because the budget that you have got us on, darling, is clearly not working. Inflation at 3% and food going up, bills going up, everything's going up. Our blood pressure's going up. You know, if the aliens came down now and did an abduction, we'd look on it as a rescue. You know? Come on, love. Do us a favour. Stop killing us. Because at some point, even what we're paying won't be enough. And at that point, you're going to have to call bankruptcy on Britain. And we don't want it to get that bad. If I had to choose between a depression and a recession, right now I'd pick the recession. Because the depression will be far, far worse. And we don't want to get Britain into that point. And I'm not just asking for myself and my husband and my children. I'm asking for the rest of the United Kingdom, please. Your policies, I've got a policy for that. That's what your favourite line is, isn't it? Got a policy. Yeah, my policies are brilliant. It's not working, darling. Please rethink what you're doing before we're all marched off a cliff. And on that happy note, everybody, I really hope you've enjoyed this morning's video. Now I'm going to go into a meeting. Lucky me. Take care of yourselves. And if you like what I do, you can always give me a thumbs up. And if you really like what I do, you can always give me a follow. And before I leave, you need to see what's been kicking me in the bum while I've been doing this little episode. Look who's been sat behind me, stealing my heat. The Monty. This is what I have to put up with, people, every single day. He steals my seat. He steals my heat. He steals the food that we all eat. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. Yes, Monty, we're talking about you. Yes, we're talking about you. Did you get bored? Did you get bored of playing with your ball? Should we go find it? I bet you've lost it again, haven't you? Yes, you. Oh, Mr. Gorgeous. Mr. Gorgeous, and he knows it. You do, don't you? Anyway, after hearing me ranting and raving, at least you got something nice at the end of the video. You got to see. Oh, you got to see my Monty. I think the chair's collapsing. Never mind. Take care, my darlings, and no doubt I will be back later.